Test. All right, everybody. Welcome to ArtwithErrol Podcast. This is our Monday check-in. Apparently, I was having some issues with our voice. All right, I got it fixed. We're good to go. So, welcome back to another Monday, y'all. We're checking in. All right, here we go. So, today's podcast, I wanted to kind of talk about, just the rise in price on everything, man. And how we stay in good spirits when, everything seems to be crumbling around us. But before we dive into that topic, I say let's do our recap. In case you don't know me, I'm Errol. I do artwork and gaming. That's a little brief introduction of me. And I'm still fairly new to podcasting. This is our 40th episode, y'all. I appreciate everybody that attends these podcasts and listens in. So a brief recap of last week. We've been really coming out of this cold / allergies. It's allergy season. I know people getting it. I've been struggling with phlegm and sinus running and coughing and just feeling terrible. Pressure in your forehead from the sinuses. Just a whole rough go of things, man. For 2.5 weeks, man. It's been rough, man. Nothing was working. Zyrtec wasn't working. I ended up trying Benadryl, and I think Benadryl actually got me on the path to success. So when it else fails, go to the old school medicine, I guess. Yeah, y'all. So we didn't do a podcast the last 2 weeks. They were really short. And, I appreciate you guys hanging tight with me, because, the last few episodes I was struggling, man, and I'm still got a little cough, but it's not as bad at all. So we did get our podcast in last week. We did get some game streams in, and last week's art video we ended up just doing just something seasonal, something kind of Halloweenish. And I'm gonna try to stick with that kind of theme for this month. Maybe doing sketches, But like I always say, in every podcast and every stream, I'm open to ideas of things you would like to see me sketch or draw or whatever. So that was pretty much the week in a nutshell, and I feel good about getting things in. The quality of it wasn't great because I wasn't feeling good, and that happens, I think, with a lot of things, when you're going through an illness or sickness or whatever, and you're still trying to make content. So at least we was able to get some things done and kind of hang in there and hang tight, right, and just hang on. As far as our topic for today, you look at the rise in prices of gaming stuff. You look at the rise in prices of food items. I mean, just all around you, stuff is just going up in prices, and a lot of it has to do with the economy, the tariffs, all a combination of everything, right? There's so many things happening that's causing subscription services to go up. I mean, just everything is just up. So how do you keep good spirits, and how do you navigate this? Game Pass went up in price. You look at leisure stuff like that. Consoles going up in price. It's about to be Christmas time, and they're going up in price. Your older consoles going up in price, which is crazy. It's you're raising prices on these things, and people are just not going to be able to afford them. They're not going to buy them. It's more important for the family to eat than to buy some of these leisure items. And then it makes people feel a certain way because, you want to get your kids something, you want to get them the new Switch, or you want to get them. Well, I don't think anybody wants to buy an Xbox the way they're going right now. But if your kid did want an Xbox, it's it went up in price. Like, you want to pay that much for it, and then pay the amount for Game Pass that they went up. It's just nuts, y'all. Nuts all around. So, yeah, how do you keep good spirits when everything around you is rising, y'all? I don't really have a great answer for this. All I can say is, you just look at where you can save money. What are the better options? If you can convince your child to switch, like to change the idea of what they want, maybe, or I don't know, man. It's really a rough time when it comes to the cost of everything, and especially during we're approaching the holiday season, right? It's holiday season coming up on Halloween, then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. So I mean, it's just rolling along, man. The Xbox heist prices are crazy, man. It's just nuts, man. $30 for Ultimate, yo. Not like I had an Xbox and I was paying for that. I have PC Game Pass, but that went up as well. It was $11, it's $16. Do I want to continue paying for that? I don't know, man. I'm kind of at odds with it, and I don't know if I'm going to cancel it. But I've been thinking about it. So it may actually happen soon enough. And I think that's what it's going to take for a lot of these companies to realize that they can't just keep raising prices on stuff. It's going to take people to actually speak with their wallets and just turn off services. And I think that's what's going to end up happening, man. A lot of people going to end up canceling a lot of these services. Already, there are a lot of people canceling, but I think, it's going to be more than they anticipated. And the reality check is what needs to happen, Do we have to pay for these things? Do we need these things? That's, you don't really, at the end of the day, you don't really need it, and you can't just buy games. It might be better to go back to the old model of just buying games, get away from the subscription services. And in some cases, it's sad because the console has went to these models of you have to pay to use their service online, which makes no sense because the hardware should be able to go online. The PS3, when it had its online, it was free at the beginning. You didn't have to pay to go online, but then they needed to pay for their PSN network apparently, and they have to charge everyone. No, I don't think they have to charge everyone. I think they just found a way of making money off people. That service should be free, with the amount of money they make on all this stuff. But it's really crazy. I think some of the ways to keep your spirits up is to know that you don't really need a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff is leisure, right? Especially when it comes to streaming services, movie services. With the rise in these prices, some of this stuff is getting priced out. Pricing people out. So it may be just more beneficial to turn them off. Go to a different service. Switching service to the cheaper service. Or just buy the movies. Go back to an older model. I don't know. And I think that's something that we all have to find peace with, shifting our tone, shifting, our mindset, being grateful for being able to get what you actually need, because a lot of this stuff we don't actually need, finding joy in smaller things, like family moments, creativity, and community. Those are all things I think, we can kind of get back to in a time where they think that they can raise prices on everyone. Because it's going to definitely have to take everybody, just shutting these services off at some point. That's what it's going to take, man. To make them bring the prices down to a reasonable to a reasonable state, it's gonna take the masses to actually shut the services off. And maybe some people feel comfortable paying $30 a month for Game Pass Ultimate, but I know for sure I wouldn't pay that. That's way too much money. And the crazy thing is, a lot of these other services are starting to do the same thing. So everybody's, raising prices in an economic trying time, and it's not good for anybody, man. It's not good for anybody. Yeah. So ways let's just touch on some things I kind of got jotted down about ways of like staying in good spirits. You budget, try to budget, man. Schedule free and low cost moments that that don't recharge you, know what I mean? Community over consumption, that's another way, when it comes to games, playing, a lot of the free to play games. I mean, you don't have to pay for the battle pass, so a lot of those you can play with friends, you can share resources, you can join gaming communities, you can create instead of consume, with the rise of cost, motivation to create some things for yourself. You can do art like I do, content, conversations, stuff like that. Focus on what you can control, you can't control the market. So, that's one of the biggest things out of all this is nobody can control the market and what people are charging to an extent, but we can, give them reason to not raise the prices and lower the prices by, using our wallets, You can't control your mindset, and you can your money. You don't have to give them your money. The service was good when it was at a reasonable price. Service is not good when it's not at a reasonable price. So I think you can make these companies come to the realization that they can't just keep raising prices by not paying them the money, just turning it off. And that's ultimately, like I said, that's ultimately what's going to take. It's going to take it's going to take their numbers to get so low that, they have to come back and say, hey, we can't, this is too low. We can't sustain this. And if we want to bring this back, we gotta lower the price. They got to bring it back down. It's going to take masses to do these type of things. Certain things like food and gas, we can't, there's not much we can do about those things, and unfortunately, those are the things that are more of a priority than anything, making sure you have food, gas, electricity and all that stuff in your house, and, the essential stuff, but when it comes to like the gaming stuff, you don't really need that, and, a lot of the games are free to play. So, you can just play free to play games. You can buy the games you want, and just turn off all the services. I would say switch to PC, but, that's not that affordable for everybody either, because PCs are expensive. They're expensive. The parts, everything, the rise in the price of parts, PC parts. I mean, it's not easy to say, hey, well, you have a console, just switch to PC. It's not that easy. Not everybody can just switch to PC, Can you get a gaming laptop? You probably can get a decent gaming laptop and run some games, but you're going to have to run them at very low settings, for the most part, it may be beneficial, it may not be beneficial, Is it going to give you the same exact quality? Maybe, maybe not. Just maybe in some titles you'll get better quality. Some other titles you might not get the same. Just depending on what type of gaming PC laptop you can afford. And it's a rough time, man. It's a rough time when it comes to your entertainment. Rough time when it comes to food. rough time when it comes to, all these services, man. Everything is going up in price. Everybody wants you to do a subscription, It kills me because, like, you go to, a car wash, and the car wash has a subscription. Like, I don't want to pay a subscription to a car wash. I just want to pay one time and wash the car. That's it. I just want to run it through one time. I don't need a subscription service. I don't need a subscription service for every fucking thing. It's just too much, man. It's too much, man. People just want constant money coming in, and, no. I don't want the Netflix of car wash. I don't want the Netflix of, whatever service. I don't want that. It's too many reoccurring charges on people's credit cards, It's ridiculous, man. It's really ridiculous. And like I said, Game Pass was a value when it wasn't $30 a month, when it was at a reasonable price. There's no way it should be $30 a month. There's just no way. But anyway, when it comes to, like I said, food and stuff, that all takes priority, and just, the way to stay in good spirits is know that you don't really need that stuff, You don't really need it, man. I don't really need it. I could turn it off anytime, PC Game Pass is cheaper, so if you can afford a PC or you do have a PC and you can run games, and you want Game Pass, it's probably better to have PC Game Pass because it's still cheaper, but it's still a little bit pricey. When you look at $16, really it should be $11 because they didn't add any extra value to it. So, to know that you can just turn all that off and just buy the game, because if you're paying $16, look, let's do this, let's do the math. Let's do some math real quick. Where's the calculator? Let me find a calculator, y'all. So, if we're paying $16 a month, that's times 12, right? Boom. That's $192, right? And the games are $80, right? So divide that by 80. Boom. That's 3 games about. Approximately 3. It's 2.4 games, right? Which would just equate to, you can round it up to 3. Or round it down, just 2. 2 games. And that's about what most people, will pay 2 to 3 games, if you're a working person. Now, if you're a content creator and you play like all the games and you give reviews and stuff, it's not the same thing. You're paying the price of, but when you look at that $360, when it's $30, right? That's $360, right? That's a lot of games that you could just buy, because if you take the calculator again, 360, right? Divided by 80. How many games is that? Boom. That's 4 to 5 games, 4 to 5 games. So, I mean, you might as well just buy the games at that point, because that's, so PC Game Pass probably still worth it to a degree, I don't know. Still seems a bit high, so I don't know. I felt like $11 was the right spot for it. But it is what it is, man. I'd like to know y'all thoughts on all of this. How do you guys feel? How do you keep yourself in good spirits? Are you turning stuff off? Are you looking at other means of providing entertainment? It's crazy because like a lot of the content is all digital now. So just buying games in the store is not the same anymore. So, I mean, if you're going to buy the games, you buy the games digitally. I mean, that's what I do. I don't really buy physical copies like that anymore because they're not usually on the disc. Some games are on the disc, but not all of them. Or a portion of the game is on the disc and it still requires a download. It still requires some kind of online connection or whatever. So, if you wanted to just get away from it all, you'd have to go back a generation or two, play a lot of older games. You have to become completely retro and then shut everything off, which, if the prices keep going the way they're going, a lot of people might be doing that, man. They might be just like shutting everything down, I don't know, man. It's just quite interesting, y'all, the way life and things is going. So, and it doesn't seem like things have been getting better. They've been getting worse, So I would definitely like to hear how everybody thinks about these things, and we can move off the topic now. I gave some ideas of like ways to kind of stay in good spirits, but you got to find your own mindset with that, really, at the end of the day, right? So let's talk about this week, y'all. We rambled on about that for 22 minutes, which was not bad. So this week, we're getting our podcast done today. We're going to play a little bit of the BO7. Since the beta's live, we're going to play some of that. So I'll get some game streams of that. And I think Friday's art video will be something seasonal. If you guys give me ideas, you comment, give ideas, I'll look at that, and we can just do some sketches of some seasonal stuff for Halloween, and for the season. It's fall. Everything's gonna be turning yellow, and trees will be dropping leaves. So we can do something. We can come up with something. Fun to do for fall, right? In our sketches on Friday, and that's just the way forward for this week, y'all. We're gonna try to get in some BO7, and I don't remember when the beta closed, but we'll play it. Definitely, I'll get on it today after this, and tomorrow I think, and I don't remember if it like ends on Thursday or Wednesday or whatever. But we'll try to get it what we can each day, and I'll have some kind of art video on Friday, y'all, and that'll be our week, y'all. And I continue to do the shorts every day, so if you tune in for the bit of gaming news on my shorts, on the gaming channel, I do that every day. So I try to come up with like interesting stuff to kind of just dive into, but it is what it is. If you like to participate, I appreciate you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channels on YouTube. Follow on all the podcasting channels that we're on, which would be Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all that stuff. You can stay tuned. I'm going to keep bringing content. I'm going to keep trying to get better, keep trying to progress, on this little adventure of, social media here, and being a content creator. I think it's fun. I think it's always interesting. I would like to have more guests and do stuff like that, and maybe like kind of chat about these topics, but I don't really have like the setup for it. Maybe I could do like a web in or something like that. I don't know. We got to figure something out. Maybe my wife can drop in again, and we can do just on one with my wife, and she can give some kind of her thoughts on things. That'll be great too. I like doing those. Other than that, y'all, I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying the content, y'all. We're gonna fire up BO7 here in a little bit. I'm just going to shut this down, get this posted, and then I'll set up for a BO7 stream. So stay tuned, y'all. I'm going to keep it coming, y'all. I'm going to keep it coming. Till next time, you know what to do. I'm out of here, y'all.